Hey y'all, Jill here, and welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. We have officially welcomed September, and so I thought it'd be the perfect opportunity to do a September garden tour. Now, the last garden tour we did was in June, so we have skipped a few months, but we are definitely in that transitional season. We're really just kind of preparing for fall. There's not a lot of summer crops here on the farm, and I just thought this would be the perfect opportunity to kind of share what those in-between seasons, those transitional seasons look like for us here on the farm. So we are going to look at our outdoor area, our 20 by 50 foot high tunnel, which is where we grow the bulk of our family's food, and then we do still have some flowers and things like that growing here on the farm. But grab your drink, come on, let's go take a look. So here we have some dead basil. We actually tried to move this arch the other day because we got our greenhouse moved, and I so desperately wanted this basil to come with us, but as you can see here, it is not very lively, so I'm actually going to just collect the seeds off of that, but I thought that'd be a little joke. But what do you guys think? We have some really big plans for this greenhouse. Nate had to knock the whole back wall out, and we're going to close that in with wood and do shelves and a pegboard. But we're going to be hosting some sourdough workshops in the next few months, and so we think this will be kind of a cute place to, like, you know, stage and set up some stuff. But I'm excited about what that's going to be.
It's also going to be a nice little just space for Mama to come out and brainstorm.
Yeah, so he put down, I know this is a garden tour, but bear with us for all of our main people. We've got our little flagstone. It's looking really good.
Someone has done a great job out here is all I gotta say.
The cameraman has done great. Okay,
you want to show them the pavilion?
That pavilion completely collapsed, if you can't tell by the braces. So we are in...
It didn't collapse. It rolled over, and now it's out of square, so I've got to square it back up.
So for all of us women, it collapsed. But it's been a nice space. We've had lots of dinners. We actually have our fire pit over here. We did a nice little open fire dinner.
Look, I'm going to show them.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, you guys.
Work in progress. This is where we hang out. And then you can see there's the greenhouse. It's all going to tie in together.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
So back here in our grids, we are just in clean out mode. So you can see we've got some staggering zinnias, stuff like that. But pretty much what we've been working on out here in the grid is just to rip all this up. We do have our dahlias over here. And then in between the dahlias, I have planted butternut squashes and our heirloom pumpkins. So that's what's going to kind of take over that whole area. And then I'm going to overwinter flowers in this grid right here. So we just found out our intern is going to be taking next year off, and she's not really sure what the future looks like for her in flowers. And so this has been all of her space. And so now that we know she's not going to be utilizing it, we are no longer selling cut flowers. We're kind of transitioning this a little bit. I think we're going to do a strawberry patch. I think we're going to grow a lot of our onions, shallots, leeks, and garlics in here too, because it'll be way more low maintenance. And then we'll have these two front areas where we grow our cut flowers, but not the whole spread. So just be a little bit easier for us to manage and honestly maintain. Over here, we still have probably one of my favorite additions to the farm, our outdoor garden. There are still some summer things cranking, like our holy basil. I mean, look at that. Look, my pole beans are starting to climb. So these are the, let's see, I planted the Monte Gusto. They're like a yellow pole bean. And then I planted another fun variety down there. So I've got that climbing on either side. I'm really hoping that this holy basil is just going to self-seed and keep, you know, thriving. We have our chives, which are so slow growing. And then our lemon balm. And I did actually plant a few lima beans out here just because. And look, they're starting to pop up.
I see that.
Lima and a lima. And then Of course, we've got brassicas in the greenhouse right now, so I'll do kale, lettuce, spinach. I'm actually going to plant stuff out here too, just to kind of show how you can grow year-round in my zone, which is 8A, whether you're in a high tunnel or not. So back here, we've got our rosemary, which these are just great perennials, but then I also tucked in some more lima beans. Back here, we have more holy basil, more of our pole beans. And I'm just trying to like get the things climbing that need to climb, and then we'll come back in and kind of spot fill with our other brassicas and greens, maybe even some root veggies. It's still not ideal to get those out just yet, so we're babying them in the greenhouse. But yeah, I mean, lots of weeding. Got some more lima beans popping up. This is our bee balm from the summer. So we have quite a few perennials, which is kind of the main goal for this garden. So it'll be, you know, indefinitely once I find all of those ideal varieties. This will just be a perennial herb garden with the exception of the annuals on the trellis. But I just haven't found all of the perennials I want yet. So being a little picky with that.
Yeah.
So this time of year is a little weird. I would say, September and February are the strangest months for us, and as far as the growing season, because they're two of our biggest transitional seasons. So we grow from, you know, we'll put things in February and we'll grow, you know, ideally year round, but we have those kind of lull seasons. And I would say September is kind of a lull because we've gotten most of the summer stuff out and we're planting and just waiting. And then February is kind of a lull because we pulled a lot of the winter crops out and we're just kind of waiting to plant spring stuff. So it doesn't look like there's a lot in here, but we have actually seeded quite a bit. So here we have our cucumbers. These are the Katrina cucumbers. They took a really long time, and I think it's because of the heat. It just was there a little bit slower to get going. And same with our squash. So this is the delicata squash. It's not a storage, you know, crop as terms of squash, which typically we don't grow those. We're only growing our storage squash, but I really enjoy cooking with the delicata. It goes great with soups. You can make great sauces. In fact, I just made a delicious delicata cream pumpkin sauce over on my Jill From Scratch channel with some homemade pasta, just like a beautiful farm-to-table dinner. So if you want to go check that out, I'll leave the information for you down below. But that's pretty much what this whole bed is. And this bed we've not planted yet. So this bed will just be for brassicas. So we still have some cleanup to do there.
Hello.
Down here, we still have all of our peppers. So we are just, you know, fresh eating. In fact, I harvested a bunch earlier. I'm going to make a sourdough cornbread. We're freeze drying a ton. These will just keep rocking until I have to utilize the space, which I will need. I will need these 4 beds for all of our brassicas. So our cabbage, our cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, those all fill up these beds. So we will have to take this space out eventually, but we're kind of staggering when they're going out, so it's not a massive deal. And because we just honestly didn't harvest as many beans as I would have hoped this year, I decided to go ahead and do another round. So I split the bed up in half. The back half is just your standard provider bush bean. It's just kind of a staple. I'm thinking about green bean casserole for the holidays. I'm looking at our pantry thinking I didn't really can enough. And so that was just kind of the point of that. And then this half up, we're actually growing lima beans. We cook with lima beans so much, and we've never put an emphasis on growing them. We've just always bought them in bulk, partially because dried beans are just really, really cheap to buy, but we thought we had the seed, might as well. And they're actually doing really, really good. I mean, they're coming up great. We sowed all this once, and then our dog got in here, so we had to reseed. So they're a little slower than I would have hoped, but they're coming along. And then this massive bed behind me, which is a 54-foot bed, is kind of broken up into... How'd you break it up?
There's 3 zones.
So zone 1 is carrots. We're growing the Napoli, the Bolero. We're actually growing Danvers this year. that we got at a local store. And then I think a few other varieties from Survival Seeds, just because we had the seeds. Then the middle section is our beets. And we are growing the Detroit red beet, the golden stone, and I think that's it. And then the back half, of course, is just our...
carrots.
No, you already did carrots. The back half... Oh, did you do radish up front?
I don't remember. No,
Okay.
I did carrots up front. You're right.
Carrots
You're right.
up front, beets in the middle, radish, which is the Daikon Bravo, only radish that we grow. So this time of year, it's hot, right? And it's that sweet spot. Like ideally for root crops, you really want your soil temperature to have dipped down some, and it did for us actually, but it was a tease. So you're just constant moisture is kind of the name of the game. While we do have drip irrigation in here, we're still overhead irrigating several times a day until germination, and honestly the tops are a couple inches, and then we'll just rely on the drip irrigation, and hopefully at that point temperatures have cooled a little bit and everything will be, you know, thriving. But it's kind of this weird, it's just a weird season, right? You're playing that delicate dance of like having to start your cool season things when it's still technically the warm season, and the timing is very, very important. And so that's kind of what we're sowing. We do have this one bed behind us as well, and this is where we have our sea of sweet potato. I mean, they're out of control.
They are.
I think I remember on the June garden tour saying, my hope is that I can plant some in each quadrant and they just take over this whole bed. And that's pretty much what they've done.
They have.
I accidentally pulled one, I can show you, when I was weeding. So I know they're in here. Look.
Oh yeah.
I know they're in here. So I don't actually know when we're gonna harvest these. I'm probably, if I had to guess, going to keep these in here until I need this bed. Now, we crank out, I would say, about 80% of our family's food needs in this 20 by 50 foot tunnel, but it's still so much food. And now that we have the outdoor garden and we have these grids freed up, we've been toying around with a few things. We are thinking about putting strawberries out in the outdoor grid and perennializing them, but strawberries are one of those fruits we are sourcing out a lot. Organic strawberries are not cheap, so we're kind of thinking, could we grow fruits in the tunnel? So maybe that looks like half of this bed with ever-bearing strawberries. Maybe half of this bed, I saw someone was growing their raspberries in tunnels up cattle panels. And so I don't know, that's something Nathan and I are going to kind of go back to the drawing board and ask ourselves, could that work? Could we give up this space? Because it is something that we are having to outsource and it's quite expensive to do so. There's just so much real estate here that we could probably crank out a lot of our family's fruit needs just from this 54-foot bed, which I kind of like the idea of doing. So we're trying to figure that out. Trying to figure out what that looks like. Maybe doing some outside as well. You just always have that weed pressure when you're growing in ground outdoors. So that would kind of alleviate us having to do that. But I'm really impressed. Look how big this squash is getting.
It is impressive.
I know. Now, the last thing I want to show you guys, while this is a garden tour, there's not a lot growing in the garden. We've sowed a lot of things, but we're kind of just in this waiting transition season. We have to go into the greenhouse to water anyway, so I thought I would share with you at least the varieties of the things I'm growing brassica-wise and what's kind of going to be making its way out in the garden in the next month or so. So I mentioned this delicate dance that we play this time of year, right? And it's really hard and tricky with germination for those cool season crops, but I know if I'm going to start some of these things from seed, I definitely need to get a jump start on them. And so I could certainly start these things in my house under a grow light, but I find I'd rather give them a little more time and attention out in the greenhouse with watering than do that whole hardening off process. But you could certainly start these in your house and it would be just fine. It is certainly a hot one, folks, but I'm excited. Do you see this life in back here? So, you know that dead basil I showed you earlier? I'm hoping to replace that with pumpkins. I've not grown pumpkins in a very, very long time. So really, really excited about that. We won't actually get our first frost here until sometime in November. So I've chosen for the most part smaller pumpkin varieties so that they can mature in time before the frost kills them. So I've just got your standard typical pie pumpkin. I do have a bigger heirloom pumpkin out in the grid, but these are the shiver pumpkins too. So I've got a few different varieties. We're just going to try to see what does well. Really, really honing in on the days to maturity is what I'm really looking at. And then this lone little ranger here, I've spent years trying to grow the Romanesco broccoli. It's this fun, spiky, funky heirloom. And I've always had pretty poor luck with germination. Well, I got one little old plant to sprout, so I'm going to grow this one. In the meantime, I don't have time to start more brassica seeds. It's just a little too late for that here. So I'm going to try to shop around at some nurseries to see, although I've never been able to find those fun, rare varieties at nurseries. It might still be worth looking. We have a lot of stuff too. Over here, it's just some extra squashes. I direct seeded all those delicata squash in the high tunnel. So I grew some from seed in case some of those didn't pop up and just to make sure I had enough, you know? So I've got some tiara cabbage that I'm still waiting to pop up. We have some of our Brussels sprouts, which you guys, these are such slow growers. This is the Dagan variety, and they're just going to take their sweet little time. I also thought I would just have an out-of-body moment and start a whole tray of seeds and not label any of them. So it's kind of like playing Russian roulette when I plant them, I guess, to see what we'll harvest. But when I started my next round, the old Jill came back and I decided that was not going to work. So here we have Emperor broccoli. It is a tried and true for us. I grow it every year. So we have a ton of that. We're actually testing out a few fun cauliflowers just for the purpose of cooking. So it's been a few years since we grew the cheddar variety. So I've got the cheddar, I've got a graffiti and a deep purple. So just fun, you know, purple heads. Let's see here. Oh, and of course, we have our kohlrabi. So we've got the bees and the tart variety. They're all doing pretty good. Here we've got some red acre cabbage. You can just see. We have our Chinese carrots. This looks like a kohlrabi to me. So just a few brassicas. So I've got 1, 2, 3 trays, some extra squash, and our old pumpkins over here. So the things I'll still have to start will be our celery, our chards, our kales, everything like that. And then we might even still source out some more from like the farmer's market and stuff on the starts. But it's really exciting knowing those will go in the ground pretty soon. So while it might not seem like much, I just thought it would be fun to share a transitional season for us. It doesn't always look like everything is packed to the max. A lot of it, honestly, is just planning and preparing for the next season and the next season and the next season. So instead of having maxed out gardens 100% of the time, we're really diligent about staggering our planting, staggering our harvest, and just spending a lot of time planning for the next season ahead. And so there is so much you can be growing right now in so many of your zones. If you have no idea, check out the link below for my year-round seed sorting guide. I literally break it up from zones 4 through zone 10, what you can be growing each month of the year. I talk about succession planting, all the seed sorting supplies you need, you name it. And so it's just a beautiful resource when I really can learn how to plan, implement, and succession planting. It took a lot of the stress out of gardening for me and made it a lot of fun because it just kind of became second nature. And it's crazy to think about that now, that what used to be something that was stressful and making sure I'm getting everything done right and on time, now it's just kind of this nice rinse and repeat system. And so now I can just take the food that is still giving us nourishment every single week and kind of just thinking of new ways to cook it or prepare it while we're waiting for that next season. I cannot rave enough about seasonal eating. It is so much fun. It makes you so appreciative of the seasons. And so I am longing for that first butternut soup of the season. I am longing for that first cabbage and apples sauteed. Like, there's so many things I just can't wait for. But I know in just a few short seasons, but I know in just a very short amount of time, the garden will be bursting full of all of those things. So thank you for hanging out with me today. I would love to know, what is your September garden giving you? Leave it in the comments down below, and I'll catch you next week.